Hi everyone, my name is Brittany and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm reading two very anticipated, very highly received thrillers.
It's Brittany, bitch.
I have requested both of these from my library and instead I have the audiobooks for both of these books. So I have Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, and this book is apparently about a husband and a wife who are like going up to a cabin and the husband has face blindness. That's all I really know about that story and that's all I really want to know. And I don't have this audiobook just yet. But then I also have the audiobook for Razorblade Tears. And this book is technically a thriller, technically not a thriller. Basically, we're following two fathers, one is black, one is white, and their sons were married and their sons were murdered. And they're going to basically try to find out what happened to their sons. I'm actually a little more than 30% of the way into this book at the moment. And I'm not gonna lie, I was really pulled into this. Like, I was so pulled into this book at first, I could not stop listening to it. It was that good. We basically open with obviously the cops telling them like, hey, like your son's been murdered. And they're like at the funeral. And there's so much like grief in this book. I think I love books about grief. And so far the book is doing it really well. And on top of all of that, I believe one or both of them have a criminal record. So they're kind of risking their criminal record and being incarcerated again to find their son's murderer. And it's honestly quite violent so far. And my favorite fucking tidbit about this book is I looked up the author, and this man legitimately works at his wife's funeral home. She owns a funeral home. She is a mortician, and he literally will like drive the hearse. I found that in an interview. I just want to look him up and see what he was like. And I'm just like in love with this whole like author as a person. I just love that he literally gets to work in a funeral home sometimes when he's not writing. And then on top of it, apparently his books, I've never read before, like this is my first one by him. They're apparently kind of like a violent Southern noir or something is kind of what they're called. And I would say so they're very violent. But it doesn't bother me. I guess it's slightly gory, but it's more about like the violence part of it where they're basically trying to beat the information out of certain people to obviously find out about their sons. So I'm only over 30% of the way into this and I'm going to continue with this and we'll see where it goes. But so far, I'm really, really enjoying it and I have no complaints. So I ended up finishing Razorblade Tears, and I think I'm gonna give this a good 4 stars. I actually really enjoyed this novel. I especially loved the beginning, but I think the problem for me was, number one, I'm not really into action thrillers. I'm not really into action movies. And this read a little bit like an action movie at some parts. And I did look it up, and this will be turned into a movie, which I think will do really well. I think this is a great adaptation for the silver screen. This book is very violent. This book is very violent and very gory, so if you don't like those things, I wouldn't recommend it because the action scenes with the gore were very well described. It didn't bother me, it made me sick to my stomach by any means. Violence is not a trigger for me. Sexual violence is, but there was no sexual violence in this novel, so I was okay. And the violence was, I think, well done. It was very descriptive, but it was very violent. So if you don't like that, I wouldn't recommend this. I obviously love the plot of Buddy Lee and Ike going to get retribution for their sons' deaths. I love that, but I didn't love the mystery. I felt like I didn't really feel the tension for them to find the murderers, and I didn't really care about that part. I really loved the beginning. When it felt more like a literary fiction, it was like really hard hitting of like them coming to grips with like their son's deaths and being like, let me fucking do something about it. I really loved that energy. But the execution of like the action didn't really get me. I think I'm just not a big action person, and not that I glazed over it by any means, but like it doesn't really entice me and it kind of bores me a little bit. It's the same way for action films. Like I can only put up with so many action shots before I'm just kind of bored and I want plot. I just feel like action begets like a lack of plot, you know what I'm saying? So that's my biggest complaint, is I just had a really hard time with that. And also I felt like they obviously brought up a lot of like race and sexuality and the LGBTQIA plus community and a lot of things like transphobia, but I just don't really know if that part was like always done well. Like, I feel like a lot of it was done really well, especially like the race part and like the poverty, and I think that was done well. But I just don't really know how I feel about the queerness being brought up in this. I felt like it was a little like didactic. I don't really know. It just didn't really like flow for me. It kind of felt like it was like dropped in to be kind of woke. Regardless, this was a good 4 stars. I loved the beginning. I was so sucked in, and I would definitely read something else by this author. And I know he has another one called like Black Top Retribution or something. I don't remember what it was. I might check that out. But also, I really like the narrator for this. At a lot of the parts, I really enjoyed his voice. He really made this book. And I wonder if I read the actual book, if I would have felt a little bit differently, because I know a lot of people that read the book didn't like it as much. but I really like the audio, so would recommend the audio. And surprisingly, I'm already 20% of the way into Rock, Paper, Scissors, and this I have to say I'm not actually liking so far. So far, this is like a 2-star. Like, I really just don't like this book for some reason, and I don't really know why. It's basically a domestic thriller where we can't really trust the husband and or the wife. And it's kind of like multiple point of views because we're seeing the wife's point of view and his point of view, and then like her writing letters to him like every single year on their anniversary, and that's the other point of view. I'm still really sure I'm like feeling it. It's not like it's bad, but I also just don't know. Again, this might be quite the opposite. I think if I had the actual book instead of the narration, I would like it more. The narrators are British, and I know that sounds really stupid, but I feel like sometimes I really cannot connect with British narrators, especially because she sounds so like posh. I find it hard to be like invested in like an intense thriller when they're like, and the door opened and he came out with the tea, and that's like literally what she sounds like. She actually reminds me of Julie Andrews, and then the male voice sounds like Mr. Bates in Downton Abbey. So I'm having a really hard time like connecting with these characters, number one, but I also just don't know if that's the book, because I know some people really love this book and then some people just really didn't like it. But I know people that even didn't like it liked the beginning, and I'm not even liking the beginning, so I'm like kind of concerned. Is it gonna get better? Am I gonna like it? Not that I want to like DNF it, but like I'm listening and like keep waiting for like to get invested, and I'm just not invested. There's no other way for me to like describe that at the moment, but basically they're driving up to Scotland for this like weekend getaway that she apparently won, and it's just kind of creepy and it's cold, and they have their dog with them. I don't know if it's like throwing me out of the story that we're going back in time with her letters, and I feel like I'm reading another book right now that actually is doing the exact same thing, but it's done in such a different way that I'm actually enjoying it, but I'm just not enjoying this book. I mean, I might be really surprised and I might really love this, but at the 20% mark, I'm not invested like at all. I also just don't know if I like the writing style. It's not always the narration. I just feel like the writing is almost like juvenile or something. Like, I just don't like the way it's written. I'm not connecting. I feel like I'm reading a really bad journal entry. So that's my opinion at the moment, but it could change. So I'm hoping this is good. I'm hoping I get to finish it tomorrow at work, because I also kind of just want to get it over with now at this point, which is not promising. So I ended up finishing Rock, Paper, Scissors yesterday, and you know what? I really wish I hadn't. This book, 100%, I should have just DNF'd, but I kept on because everyone kept talking about how much they love this book and their twists were amazing. I saw everything coming a mile away. And I just kept like hoping I was wrong or it would get really interesting. And honestly, this book was such a snooze that I'm honestly, I've already forgotten about it like so much. Like, it's such a forgettable book, and I don't even know if I'd recommend it for like an isolated wintry setting, because I didn't even get setting. Honestly, this book had nothing really going for it for me. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the plot. I didn't like anything. I didn't like the motivations. I didn't like the setting, because the setting was like this old chapel in Scotland, but like I really didn't feel it. I didn't feel like they were ever trapped. I didn't feel any tension. Honestly, I just also hated the fucking point of view letter chapters from the past. I don't know, it's just really upsetting because I really thought I was going to enjoy this book at least, but honestly, I'm afraid to pick up anything from this author because I just hated it that much. It's getting a 1-star from me. I don't have anything even nice to say about it, which is like almost more concerning, and it's just almost like hard to put my finger on what didn't work, but nothing worked. I didn't like these characters. I didn't like the story. I didn't like the past versus the present timelines and how those were used like against us. You know, I expected that to happen. It made sense. I also really just wanted something, again, more sinister. I wanted like a better story, and I wasn't at all invested in the characters or the story enough to care what actually happened, which is why I should have DNF'd it, but I refused because I was like, everyone kept saying how there was like all these amazing twists and twists and twists, and I didn't even feel like they were really like plot twists. Like, they just happened and I was like, oh, okay. Like, they were never surprising or shocking or like, oh my god, I didn't expect that. So honestly, I don't really know if I can say for sure you should skip it, but like for me, I'm just so disappointed because Gabby Reeves loved this, but Katie Coulson did not. So here I'm going to side on the side of Katie, but it's also upsetting because I didn't even like the beginning. Like a lot of people said they loved the beginning and then it hated the other half, but I didn't like the beginning. I didn't like the whole fucking novel. I literally worked my ass off yesterday trying to finish it at work because I just wanted to get it over with. And then when it was finished, I was like, I just wasted like a straight up 7 full hours of my life listening to that audiobook. So anyway, those are my final thoughts. I don't really have much else to say. I didn't like pretty much anything about rock, paper, scissors. Didn't work for me. But the other book I read in this vlog, Razorblade Tears, I would recommend. I did really enjoy it, and I don't know if it's also because I read a good 4-star book and then I read a 1-star book, but the 1-star book is looking really bad right now. So go check out Razorblade Tears if you enjoy violent Southern noirs, and skip rock, paper, scissors. Cut that shit right out of your life. Cut it right out of your TBR. No shade to the author. Not sure if I'm ever gonna pick up any of her other books. She has some other really famous ones, but I didn't even like the writing style or the narrative, so not sure if she's gonna be for me. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, have a good day. Bye!